So get your priorities right. Know what you want to do, know where you want to be, and what you're willing to invest in order to achieve that. And then once you got that clear in your mind, be honest to yourself, and don't aspire something that you are not willing to pay for.
Looking to expand your professional toolbox? Well, do you know how your most important tool, your brain, actually works? Every day, every minute, every second, we use our brains intensely, and yet we know so little about the most important muscle in our body. Welcome to BrainyHeart, where psychologist and neuroscientist Evelyn Goodman will show you which few buttons you have to press to fully exploit your potential. Learn how to convince your brain it's worth working together with your heart and go way beyond what you think you're capable of achieving. Stay tuned for bi-weekly advice sessions and expert interviews delivered with a dose of charm, humor, and, when necessary, a kick in the pants. Here's your brain retrainer and host, Evelyn Goodman.
Hello everyone, this is Evelyn Goodman, BrainyHeart, and I have a very exciting guest here with me today, namely Torsten Hinrichs. Torsten Hinrichs has been, before his current position with Standard & Poor's for 15 years and West LB before that for 15 years. He's been with Scope as another rating agency, European rating agency. What would you like to say about Scope and about yourself, Torsten? Welcome.
Oh, thanks a lot, Evelyn. Firstly, about myself, maybe a little bit. I mean, you mentioned 15 years at West Deutsche Landesbank. That wasn't 15 years in the same position. Okay. They pretty much threw every third year they threw another position at me. So it was 15 years, but five, six different jobs I took at West Deutsche, mainly in the capital markets area and derivatives trading. And then following 15 years at Standard & Poor's was totally different ball game. It was on the credit rating side of things. Previously, I've been a user of ratings. Now I was producing them, but everything was still connected to capital markets and the fixed income markets. So it sort of made sense in context. Scope, on the other hand, is the European challenger to S&P, Moody's, Fitch, and the usual incumbents in that market. It's a global oligopoly consisting of 3 companies. And we're providing the market with a European alternative and a challenger to that oligopoly. And that's what I've been doing for the past 5 years with lots of fun and spirit.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell, people, you don't see Torsten now, but I can see him as he's got lots of sparks in his eyes. So, Torsten, I'd like to ask you another question, namely, do you see a kind of generation difference? So having taken a look, being in the industry for such a long time, is there a difference between, the way you handle things that are upcoming today than those who are around my age, generation X, Y, Z?
Well, I'm hesitating to say that there's a generation difference, because if I think back to my younger days, there were more ambitious and less ambitious people that I've spent time with. There have been more successful and less successful people, and I think the same applies for the younger people that I meet today. If there is a difference, maybe it's driven by the effects of our media environment, whether it's social media, whether it's just TV. I mean, there's no movie you can watch on TV without being interrupted by a commercial every 20 minutes latest. So that gives you an opportunity to run your brain down and relax a little bit before you start concentrating again. And we didn't have that at the time, right? So there was no commercials in movies. So we were forced to concentrate for an hour and a half. I would say that is, if anything, that's the main difference I see today. We maybe have been trained to be a little bit more focused for longer periods of time, a little bit more dedicated to what we were actually doing at the time. And I'm not saying that's a general observation for everyone today. I mean, I clearly have very talented young people in my team now who are able to focus and to concentrate and are very dedicated. But more often than not, I see the other extreme as well.
Okay.
And that may be a result of the media environment that we live in.
Okay. I mean, this is really fascinating to hear. That is that really so? That is it the environment? Yes, it is in the environment. I mean, from neuroscientific point of view, when we didn't have mobile phones and when we didn't have so much information exchange, we weren't also like this. What would you recommend to a younger person who just graduated from high school and would like to go to university, or has just graduated from the university and would like to get into the work life? So what would you recommend them? What assets they have to develop? What muscles they have to actually train?
Well, I think at that stage, just coming out of school, whatever school it may be, one of the biggest assets you should have at that time is flexibility. I think you need to have a plan for the short term. So you need to know what you want to do in the next 2 years, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But don't be preoccupied by ideas for the longer run, because life doesn't serve you all the time what you would like to eat. So fundamentally, from my experience, I had a plan for the next couple of years. I wanted to be in the international business, whatever that means, right? I didn't have a clear plan at the time, but I knew I wanted to be part of a company that acts internationally, that has international presence, and that would offer me the opportunity to do something internationally. And that was my plan. And that's why I joined Vestab back in, I don't know, 83 or so. And that worked because they did send me abroad. But I had no clue what I was going to do abroad at the time, and I had no clue that this was going to repeat itself 3 times in a row. Wow. And it wasn't planned for initially, but I was flexible enough to sense the opportunity and to take the opportunity when it presented itself. A general vision, a general view as to where you want to be, what you want to do over the next 2 to 3 years, the general direction, but then stay flexible and explore opportunities and be open to opportunities as they come along, and don't be shy, don't hesitate. And if you're not sure whether you can actually fulfill that obligation or fit into that role, and think of yourself as being able to grow into that role. Okay. and be bold.
Yeah, you're right. Entitlement. It's said that the millennials are extremely entitled. They feel entitled. Well, when I study this and do that, then if I can speak 5 languages and graduation XYZ university, then I'm entitled to get that kind of salary. I'm entitled to get that kind of company car and a mobile phone and whatnot. So what do you say to that phenomenon, Torsten? From a person like you to hear that would be lovely.
Well, honestly, if I was to meet a young person that had that attitude, I would tell him to cut that bullshit, excuse my language.
Okay.
Because it is bullshit.
Okay.
You are not entitled just because you have a certain education or a certain social background or whatever it may be.
Okay.
You have to earn your way.
And
you start, education is perfect. You have to have education. It's very important. But it only gives you the tools. And a toolbox in itself doesn't make you a good carpenter or a good whatever craftsman.
Yeah.
Right? So you get the toolbox. So what? Now you need to make that work. You need to put it into practice. And that takes effort. That takes dedication. That takes time, commitment, and flexibility, as I said before. So forget about entitlement. There is nothing like entitlement, at least not in our society. It may be different in different types of society, but in the Western world, there is no entitlement. You got to earn it.
Okay. Patience. Do you think that the younger generation lack patience?
I'm not so sure whether generally the younger generation lacks patience.
Or did we all get impatient?
I think at some point you do get impatient.
Okay.
The question is whether you get impatient for a good reason, or whether you are just overestimating your abilities, and it's totally unreasonable for you to become impatient at the time. So I did get impatient at a certain point in my career, and I was seeking a change. But I think generally impatience, I wouldn't say it's a generation thing of this particular generation or another generation. I think we all get impatient at some point in time. The question is, are we justifiably get impatient, or is it something that we just breed in our minds, and it's maybe a little bit of.
What would you say, or what would you advise to a younger person between 20 and 30 years old? Let's say they just are doing a kind of traineeship in a company and they're totally unhappy because they are underworked. So they're not really, being used. I know younger people that I work with sometimes, young talents. Yeah, they say, like I'm in Evelyn, I'm in the office in the afternoon. I just wait. The time is up, then I can go home because 3 to 6 o'clock I have nothing to do, and I feel frustrated. So
Why are they frustrated? I mean, they have a mouth, right?
Okay.
They can express themselves.
Okay.
So if I observe a young person sitting in the office not doing anything in the afternoon, I would expect that person to approach me and say, listen, boss, what can I do? This is getting boring for me. And I would ask him, why is it getting boring for you? And I would most likely get a good answer. So you have to not just sit there and wait for things coming your way.
Very good.
You also have to ask for them. And if you do that properly and good mannered, but if you do that properly and there is no response, it may not be the right company for you. But any good company, any good supervisor or superior will recognize that, yes, this guy can actually do more, and you will get more.
Another point is, for example, impact making, right? So like the younger generation basically say very soon after half a year or 8 months, right, they get into a company and say, well, I'm not really making any impact. So
on what basis do you want to make an impact if you're just half a year in the company?
Excellent.
I mean,
Thank you. Like when Torsten Hinrichs say that, this got another value than any other person is saying this. So thank you for saying this.
I mean, again, in order to make an impact, in order to have a voice, you first of all have to earn your credentials, right? And you have to have other people accept your credentials, not just your bosses, also your peers and other people you work with. They have to value your thoughts, what you say, and so on and so forth. And once you gain that reputation or you gain that respect of your colleagues, of your superiors, of other people in the organization, all of a sudden impact will come by itself. But impact making is nothing that you learn in school, at least my experience.
Excellent. Torsten, what would you advise to a younger person?
A younger person must have a plan in life, what they want to achieve and what they're willing to invest for that. It's always a trade-off. And if you aspire a fabulous career and want to be on the cover pages of newspapers and magazines, that comes at a price. And the price typically is you spend a lot less time with your family and you spend long hours in the office. And you may have to move locations and give up your friends and start from afresh in various different places. And that is a decision that you have to make. And you need to be clear in your mind with how far you want to go. And basically that determines as to what type of career you're going to have. So get your priorities right. Know what you want to do, know where you want to be, and what you're willing to invest in order to achieve that. And then once you got that clear in your mind, be honest to yourself, and don't aspire something that you're not willing to pay for.
Very good. Well, you said it all. How about the financial crisis? I have to get there, certainly. Like when I have a financial guru, if I may say so, in my studio, then I have to ask this question: how, or what do you think of the 2008 financial crisis? I'm sure you were in the middle of the whole madness. We explain it neurologically as the dopamine and oxytocin shock, right? So the power of here and now is dopamine. It's a short-term hormone, and we would like to get it when whenever we satisfy ourselves, we have dopamine. That's why all these telephones, mobile phones, etc., our entire social media acting is a dopamine source. So whenever we get likes, then we get dopamine. Oxytocin is a binding hormone. At the same time, when we have enough of it, we can make long-term strategic decisions. Lack of it will make us to make short-term decisions. And this is, I think, what the financial crisis, and at that time, what happened in the United States, they said, why wait for 20 years? You can have your dream house now. And that power of here and now caused that madness. We explain it neurologically like this. How about you?
Well, I clearly use different words for it. And in my view, it's basically a function of greed and common sense. To be honest, and during the time actually in the run-up to the crisis, 2008, so in the 5 years, 6 years before, it was basically that greed took the lead over common sense and maybe ethical behavior and all of these good things.
Wow.
I'm far from explaining it with hormones. But I can clearly observe, or have observed at the time, that a lot of people in the markets, not just in the US but also here in Europe, were sort of in a position to have to perform. There was a lot of peer pressure going on as the investment managers needed to perform at the same level as the peers in the industry, and the peers did something funny which short term paid off well, so you felt the need to do something funny as well, and so the boundaries were pushed beyond what was actually sensible and good, and we all know the results of that. So I think one of the key issues in the financial markets at the time was really short term, as you said, but it was the need to show short term performance, and it was the greed to be at par with your peers, and that is really what drove common sense, good ethical behavior, even staying within regulation. I mean, regulatory compliance, which pushed that to the back.
Yeah.
And that's precisely what happened back then.
Indeed. Well, in another interview, I'll ask you, when is the next financial crisis are to hit? Or may I ask this question to you right now? So what is your estimation? What's happening around the world right now?
Well, no one knows when the next financial crisis is going to hit, and we didn't actually anticipate it in the last financial crisis either. We called it the black swan, and that's happening.
You didn't see it coming, did you, at that time?
We saw it coming like a few months before it really happened.
Okay.
But not longer, not much before that. But what we observe today is obviously some very irrational behavior by political leaders around the world.
Yeah.
Unnecessary, erratical behavior, and pulling off trade wars for nothing. We see a lot of populism around the world, not just in the US, also here in Europe, and that's not sensible economic or political behavior, and no one really knows what that's going to lead to. We can only hope that, again, coming back to my common sense issue here, that common sense prevails and that rational behavior prevails. Unfortunately, in Europe, and we're just approaching elections in Europe, and time will tell. And next Sunday we know more whether this populist movement and nationalist movement will gain votes and will prevail or not. But that's one of the risks I'm seeing. We're not cooperating as a global society. We're not trying to maximize each other's well-being. Mm-hmm. We're more or less focusing on ourselves and on little societies that for themselves cannot exist. Mm. And that's the big risk as I'm seeing now.
Yeah, well, again, I have to get in there just shortly, if I may. Namely, whenever we take on the left cognitive mind, we become individuals. I come before you principle, and this is why we were uploaded into our system in the past decades, coming from the United States, just like work-life balance. However, whenever we just concentrate or take on the right cognitive mind, then we are willing to communicate with the others, connectivity. Right hemisphere or cognitive mind is then stimulated, God, universe, connectivity, being connected with the others, right? So because our brain basically grows best when it's connected with the other brains. So this is the trend the world is going. However, we learned also the past generations, I come before you principle, left-minded focus? I mean, do you see this trend as well, or what do you see? Because I see a complete different trend when I, traveling between Berlin and Shanghai, Asian world. Also in Europe, we've got this, big offices. Also from the United States, you worked in the United States long enough, you know that. So working in large offices, being more and more connected with the others. Is it the trend, populism? So, I mean, I come before you principle and being closed, or is it the answer being connected? I mean, it's a rhetorical question, actually.
Yeah, well, of course, it is a rhetorical question. I think we all have to use our entire brain and not just the left or the right side.
Correct. Right.
And in my experience, I've prevailed, or I've succeeded in my career not because of me, but because of my ability to connect with others and to make others support my goals.
Wow.
And I think that is key also in politics, and that's key in the climate discussion and whatever it may be. We are too small individuals, and we're not powerful enough to optimize our well-being all by ourselves. And I think once we've understood that will change our behavior. That must change our behavior. And this is, obviously, we're addressing younger people's needs and what their objectives maybe should be. That's a key message. You're not in this world by yourself. And if you want to excel, if you want to become bigger, 1 and 1 is not 2. 1 and 1 can be 3. But 1 always stays 1, if at all.
Correct. And my last question to you as BrainyHeart. Torsten, what is more important to you, brain or the heart?
I think that my heart determines what my brain does.
Okay.
So I can't give you a straightforward answer, but I think it's not disconnected. And at least looking back at what I've done or not done in the past, it's been hard decisions that led my brain to do, in the end, the right thing.
Very good. Ladies and gentlemen, that was such a brilliant answer. Indeed, the heart corresponds to the right hemisphere, and it's the faster part in us, right? Our right hemisphere is the Ferrari, we say all the time in BrainyHeart, and the left hemisphere is the Fiat 500. Both are great cars, but actually, the Ferrari wins. It's clear. Ladies and gentlemen, this was an interview with Torsten Hinrichs. Greetings from BrainyHeart. Bye-bye.
Congrats on investing in yourself to up-level your career. Want more on how to use the most important muscle in your body? Then head to evelyngoodman.com/BrainyHeart to get the latest episode and exclusive additional content delivered straight to your inbox. Oh, and if you're loving the show, make sure to subscribe and drop a review or comment. It'll help spread the word to empower more brain havers to balance their brain and their heart. Until next time.